Welcome. My name is Melody Takada. I'm a San Francisco-based artist and arts administrator and the program manager for the Sankofa Fund administered by ACTA, the Alliance for California Traditional Arts. I'm here to guide you through the application process, and joining me today is ACTA's Special Initiatives Director, Lily Karazi, who will be noting your questions in chat. We will address the chat questions at the end of the webinar, where I will share my contact information with you again. So before we talk about how to apply for the funds, let's ground this discussion to understand what Sankofa means and where it comes from. Sankofa teaches us that we must go back to our roots in order to move forward. That is, we should reach back and gather the best of what our past has to teach us so that we can achieve our full potential as we move forward. Whatever we have lost, forgotten, forgone, or been stripped of can be reclaimed, revived, preserved, and perpetuated. This concept comes to us from a specific people, the Akan people of West Africa, Ghana, and is transliterated here for us in the Akan language, as you can see. Here's a look at a big time frame for this grant. The last day to submit your application is September 1st before midnight. Notifications will be sent out October 15th, and your grant period is between November 1st of this year into October 30th of next year, after which a final grant report is due from you by November 30th. So who can apply for the grant? San Francisco-based individuals over the age of 18, nonprofit organizations with 501c3 tax status, or if you are a community group and you do not have 501c3 nonprofit status, you can go through a fiscal receiver that is a San Francisco nonprofit-based organization. How much are the grants? Grants range between 1,500 to 1,500. An example of what a 1,500 grant might be used for: an individual to buy supplies for the continuation of their practice, to purchase paints for a mural, or perhaps 6 drums for teaching your class to youth. An example of 15,000 could be a project led by an organization to document the oral history of the culture bearers in their community. The project should take place in the same community you are addressing. How many grants will be awarded? We anticipate dispersing 180,000. Half of those grants will go to individuals, culture bearers, and the other half will go to organization community groups. In this process, we hope to see some applications serving historically marginalized communities and vulnerable populations. And again, all grants must benefit the community they represent. How are decisions made for this grant? We will be asking 3 to 5 peer panel reviewers. They will be artists, practitioners, or they have experience in particular cultural practices, who will read your proposal and make recommendations based upon the project, the community or communities served according to the criteria of the Sankofa Fund. So let's look at the guidelines. Acknowledging that our heritage, legacies, ancestors, mentors, and communities are bedrocks of who we are and contribute to our creativity, the grants are intended to support work that is centered around what each community values as important. These practices involve many aesthetic forms, value systems, and languages. The Sankofa Fund is designed for the continuity and transmission of the collective values of your community. What kind of projects will be funded? The focus of your project should support cultural practices rooted in a specific community with an identifiable lineage or collective history. Keep in mind that it does require a public presentation element, such as a live performance, online sharing, or publication. Some examples of Sankofa Fund projects can be support for ongoing practices of cultural traditions such as folkloric dance, teaching the Chinese zither, apprenticeships, or workshop on Arabic calligraphy. It can also be a live performance of Chinese classical music, or an exhibit of Lukumi beadwork, or a Lao New Year observance festival. You could also film document the oral history of a cultural bearer in your community. The grant could also be used for a sacred social gathering, such as Two-Spirit Powwow. The online application called Submittable can be viewed once you are registered an account with Submittable with your email and password. To find that, you go to ACTA's website, scroll over our work, and click on the Sankofa Fund. On the Sankofa Fund page, click on the Submit button. It will take you to the grant requirements and everything we're covering here today, information. And at the bottom of that, it will ask you to either create your account or to sign in if you already have a Submittable account. Once you have successfully registered with Submittable, you will receive an email confirmation. You can then access the Submittable application and view all the pages of the application and save your draft until you are ready to submit. We encourage you to submit before the deadline to avoid any technical issues. The application again is available from now until the deadline September 1st before midnight. If by chance you cannot access the online application initially, you can send me an email requesting for a paper application with your mailing address. However, the online application will need to be used to submit your proposal. We cannot accept physical copies of your application. So let's go through the application. So there are 4 major application questions, a project timeline, and expense budget you will need to create. This is the first question, to describe your project. Who are the artists, elders, historians, your culture bearers involved in your project? What are the project activities? What are your plans for sharing? Whether it be a public performance, exhibit, festival, or website, or some other online form. So question 2, what is the cultural significance of the project in the context of your community? How does this project support the goal of your cultural preservation? If you can provide here any historical connection of your project to your specific community. For example, if I was to do one on folk dance practice, and in our 100-year-old community's history, it has been established as a community tradition. And with this folk dance tradition, how is it significant? Is that we celebrate and honor the spirits of our ancestors. It is significant because it brings us together in celebration of our cultural heritage. It is in this transmission of cultural tradition from elders to younger generations that provides a powerful connection within our community. You can also elaborate on the cultural practice in your community, or say if some of the members in your community are experiencing homelessness or are youth involved in the foster care system, you can explain that and how this project will help them ground themselves in the community. Question 3. The third question, who is responsible for implementing this project? Describe their roles. So in this example here, under organization applicant, the Cultural Center Program Director, Daisy Rose, who has overseen art classes for youth, master artist workshops, and have done other programming. She will be the project manager, and she will be in charge of scheduling volunteers for this project, purchasing art supplies, coordinating room reservations, and you can also talk about the teaching staff. So here we're saying the master artists are Lance Rivera and Mary Gomez. And you can talk a little bit about their role and their artistic practice, and if they've done any projects similar to this one in the past. If you're an individual artist, and you can say that you are the project lead, that you've conducted several of these types of projects over the course of 3 years, has extensive experience leading a group of 10 to 50 community members in the process of art making and exhibiting their work, and that her cultural practice spans 20 years, and can give any other samples or work that she's done in the past. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Question 4. What is the anticipated impact of the project on the community? What is success on your own terms? And in your own words, tell us about your work in your community and what you view as successful or impactful. You can speak about how the project reinforces your community values or a value system, or how the project provides a deep connection between generations and offers continuity of collective values. Speak about your knowledge of your work in the context of your community and your own internal ideas of what is success and what is impactful. We move on to the next item is timetable. You can use your timeline to reflect how you will move through the process of your project. List 5 milestones or actions that will help you reach the final presentation. The project budget just lists the expenses that you have. Here we're showing an organizational sample project budget. And down below, we're adding in budget notes. So there is a section that you can add all your budget notes to explain out, say, line 3, supplies and other. And in the budget notes, we've described each item and how much it is, and as well as space rental. So space rental for 5 days at $80 an hour for 3.25 hours a day. If you see the total is at 12,165, you can round up. So 12,200 is what you want to put in for your project budget. Here's an individual sample of an expense project budget. And we've described in the budget notes for line item 2, cultural advisors, that there are 3 at 500, and that they are Chicano muralist advisors for technique and history of topic. We've also described what permits are for and what kind of permits. If you have a question about what to put in for your budget notes, if you're unsure, send me an email and we can talk it over or go through any other questions you have about your specific project. So this is the last section we'll go over in the application, work samples. They should reflect the artist or organization's recent work within the last 5 years. Panelists will review a total of 5 minutes of work samples, so you can put in 1 or 2 work samples that would total 5 minutes. You can submit a combination of still images, audio recordings, and linked videos. All video work samples and all all work samples need to be viewed through Vimeo or YouTube or other online video viewing. Be sure to include information for each work sample. And if you are including a video and it is password protected, please be sure to list the password. For projects involving material arts, select up to 10 uploaded images. Accepted file types are listed within the application. So again, if you can open your application first to check over the guidelines of what sort of file types are accepted would be great. Okay, we're going to go on to this last page. My information is email is sankofa@actaonline.org. You can reach me at the phone number 415-346-5200. And again, the submittable application on ACTA is on their website, which is listed here. And technical help for submittable, I know it says XXX. What you can do is once you open up submittable, if you look at the top right corner, there is a question mark there. So you can click on the question mark and scroll down, and you can send an email to submittable with your specific issue that you're having on submittable. You can also contact me by email and we can work with submittable on that issue as well. Okay, so we're going to now move on to answering the questions from your chat.
Yeah, hello everyone. This is Lily. I work with Melody at ACTA, and it's great to see both familiar faces and some new folks. So welcome, and we hope that you'll also be introduced to the Alliance for California Traditional Arts and our other programs. So Melody, our first question comes from Cindy, who writes, what form can the presentation portion of the project take? Can they be testimonials from participants who are willing to share publicly? Can it be a short video of a portion of a workshop or an offering? Because a large part of our work is creating a safe space for BIPOC to be and heal in community, and a public offering may not create that safety.
Okay. So the final presentation portion of your project can be done through audio or video or in person. As long as it's within your community and they feel fine with doing it that way, I think that works. Maybe Lily, if you have any other answer to that.
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, you know your communities. This money and your projects need to serve your community. And so it's an arts funding project. So if there's a part of that, the arts that you are using in creating a safe space for community, and if you have permission, nobody wants to violate safety, but it is important to the San Francisco Arts Commission that there is some sort of public sharing. Now, that public sharing may be that it's open to all members of the BIPOC community that you are serving. That may be quite sufficient. And I'll just give you one example from a past program that might be useful to all of you. In a Living Cultures grant, which is very similar to this grant, we had a project that was designed by Glide Memorial Church called Teaching Through Negro Spirituals. And it was designed just for women. It was a women's group. There was a lot of very tender work that went on. However, the piece of teaching had to do with learning the history of the spiritual, and then the women went on to write their own version of that spiritual, depending on their stories, their narratives. So what resulted was a book of poems, a book of songs, but with the permission of those particular participants, if that's helpful to you. And I would say, please follow up with Melody, and you can talk this through if this was relevant or not quite hitting your particular project's needs. Our next question, Melody, is the artist applicant lives and works in San Francisco, but does the community served need to live in San Francisco too?
Yes. So the community that is being addressed must be San Francisco, and it needs to be related to your project as well.
This is also to say and to acknowledge, folks, that all Bay Area artists and communities are really connected, that we understand how hard it is to live here, and that oftentimes artists who work in San Francisco don't and cannot live here. We all know this as a reality. So make your case, like while you might be serving most of your community that may have gone off to Vallejo to work, some of your community may still be here, or you may be here. So talk it through, make the case. We also have a question that asks, what criteria will readers use to evaluate applications?
Oh, what criteria will they use to, wow, didn't see that. The criteria is listed in the guidelines, and according to San Francisco Arts Commission, the criteria is that the community you are serving is in San Francisco, but like Lily said, a lot of people aren't able to live here. So if you want to invite other people that are not in San Francisco to the event that will happen in San Francisco would be great. Criteria is that your project and your community are the same. And if you have any other specific questions about that, I guess you can contact me directly if I'm not hitting the answer that you're looking for.
Yeah, a question from Michael about work samples, and Michael is a poet, which is a traditional art certainly, and the question is, how can writing be included as a sample as long as it fits within 5 minutes? And Melody, let me just jump in with an answer. We've had this actually a question regarding poetry, Michael. So thank you for bringing it up. It is really great to be seen as well as heard. And so I would encourage, if you have a video and this goes for many, many art genres, a video of you, artist, in recitation, presenting your work. It helps to understand more fully the impact. You can also upload as your work sample a JPEG or a PDF of certain samples of your written work, if that's acceptable to you. But I would highly, highly encourage folks to be seen as well as heard. And that is great for musicians as well.
Great.
Do we have more questions?
Yes, I have a question. I just need to ask it verbally. So a couple of things in terms of the community that we serve. Can we choose a smaller group within the wider community? Because my community that I'm serving is mainly BIPOC, diaspora community, African diaspora community. But I'm an artist in residence right now, and I'm working on a particular project that I feel would be, that I would like to offer a smaller community within the community and then invite the larger community. Is that something that could work, or would you suggest I just invite the whole community anyway?
So am I understanding your question correctly? Are you asking if the project can use a specific smaller group of people for the work?
Yes, I was
And then,
thinking of like, in particular within the Black community, girls and women.
mhm. Oh, mhm.
But then, you know, obviously to open that up to the wider community, because I'm particularly interested in, and it's not a community that I've served, but it's a community that I'm interested in serving in terms of like girls and women in foster care in particular.
Mhm.
So, but I don't, you know, I'm not currently serving them. So I want to be, you know, authentic in terms of what I'm doing and who I am serving and who I want to serve. So that was one of the questions. And then I had another question.
So you're wanting to reach out to those youth, but in terms of just as the presentation, as a final presentation?
As a final presentation would be more
Okay.
open to a
To,
wider community,
yeah.
but work specifically through workshops and art practices
Yeah,
for a smaller specific community that I feel is underserved.
right. That would be perfect. That would
Okay.
be really wonderful.
Okay. And then the second question, because we are in the middle of this pandemonium, as I call it, do we need to just generally write about guidelines for safety? Because none of us know by the time we actually do this project. I mean, I know the schools are going back right now and masking and podding and all of this stuff, that by the time we roll out these projects, do we have to have some kind of parameter or fantasy of how we would deal with, you know, that, you know, because it's a public performance, and if we can't be out in
Right.
public, those, I'm just
Yeah, throwing
thinking
out the
ahead. Yes.
possibilities.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, we have to follow the city guidelines in terms of the pandemic, what is necessary to stay safe. If your public presentation needs to be modified, you're welcome to do that. We totally understand. Maybe it'll end up being on Zoom instead, or maybe you'll do an audio recording instead, and that would be okay. That would work.
Okay. Okay.
And if you have any questions about that, not sure how you're going to get to the end, go ahead and contact me, and we can walk through it and discuss what are the different possibilities and what's going to work for your specific project.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so very much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. We have a question by several people asking, can I apply as an individual and can I apply as an organization? And you can. You can apply as an individual artist and you can apply with your organization if they're two separate projects. And if you are included, if you apply as an individual, but some other application is coming from an organization that mentions you as an artist in that project, that's great. That's fine. You're not competing against yourself. Each project is going to be considered on its own merits. And part of the merits include how you talk about your work. You have 250 to 200 words to get a lot of information in. So I would say we're all under a cloud of what will be with the pandemonium, as Remy spoke of. And we will have to adjust as that time goes on. But because there's an economy of words, it's a few words to get across your concept. I wouldn't spend a lot of time talking about COVID, your COVID relief measures. We'll all deal with it when we have to. Just talk about the project you would like to do.
So how many people will read each application? There will be 3 to 5 panelists who will review your application.
Do we have any more questions? If anybody would like to stop for a small group, that would be fine at this point.
Oh, there's 3 people waiting. No, I just let some people in. So we have 3 new people in. So if you're just entering this webinar, if you have questions, this is now the time to ask. You can do it in chat, or if you want to raise your hand, you're welcome to do that. If you have specific questions and you just came in, you can also email me.
Okay, one last question. Can an individual apply for 2 different projects? You've got to take your best shot. All right. All right, another question, Melody. I am not a technical person and will have a problem excerpting or editing the video to meet the 5-minute max. Can I advise what video sections to view by listing the start and end time? So yes, you can. If your video is extremely long, it will message you back that it's too long. But you give very specific instructions to view at 2 minutes, 10 seconds to 3 minutes, 10 seconds, if that's your wish. And just please advise what you would like us to look at. For instance, if you are the artist in that 1 minute, you might indicate in your description the lead artist is dressed in yellow, who is entering stage left.
Thanks, Lily. Did Tracy Brown have a question? No. No.
Sorry, I didn't know if I was supposed to unmute, but I put it in the chat and I was just wondering
Okay.
if the recording will be shared. I was in the waiting room for a while. And
Okay. Yes, it will be shared. We will have it on the ACTA website for you to view.
wonderful. Thanks so much.
Sure thing. And everything we covered is in the guidelines, and it's mentioned as part of the criteria. So the only thing that was different, what we did was add in some samples or examples. So, thank you everyone for attending this first webinar. We will have a second one on Monday, so you can register and be with us again.